the Diocese of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The story of the faith began here with fearless missionary priests. It grew and developed through the ministry of devoted bishops and is still being written today under the leadership of its current apostle, Bishop David Walkowiak.
I knew, once again, that I had to say yes. I mean, you can't come up small in the spiritual life. I mean, the whole trajectory of being a priest is saying yes to whatever the next thing is. So I knew I was going to say yes.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. "30 miles east of Lake Michigan, on the banks of the Grand River, is the city of Grand Rapids, sea city of the Diocese of Grand Rapids."
I came to Grand Rapids because I wanted to. I wasn't just passing through. I love this city. Probably in Michigan, it is the most dynamic city currently. West Michigan is one of the strongest areas economically. The people here have a tremendous pride in the city, especially the founding families, a lot of the Dutch families that have been here forever. They've not fled to other places. They've stayed right here. You look at all of our major institutions, you'll see the name like DeVos, Meyer, Van Andel, all these things. And, so our arena, so our public hall, so our children's hospital. Grand Rapids has a cohesion which is very, very attractive. And of course, you're only 25 miles from Lake Michigan, which has some of the most beautiful beach in the world.
The Catholic Church had its origins in Michigan when French missionaries and traders traveled down Lake Michigan and its tributaries. Jesuits established small mission sites with various Native American tribes and worked hard to learn their languages and share the gospel in a way that resonated with their cultural background. The town of Grand Rapids had its start as a fur trading post in 1806, started by Joseph and Madeline Laframboise. Madeline was a fascinating character who had a large part in the early history of Catholicism in this part of the country.
She was of mixed Native American and French descent, fluent in about 3 Native American languages as well as English and French. She partnered with her husband to begin this trading business, but after he is murdered in 1806, she successfully manages the fur trading business for more than a decade, even competing with the likes of John Jacob Astor. In 1984, she's elected posthumously to receive this recently established Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. So she goes down in history, beginning with her husband, but taking this business and bringing it to the level that really puts Grand Rapids on the map.
One of the most remarkable stories in the early history of Grand Rapids is that of Bishop Frederick Baraga. A native of Slovenia, Father Baraga came to the United States as a missionary priest, intent on serving the Native American population. His tireless labors earned him the nickname the Snowshoe Priest.
And his early missionary activities planted the seeds for a growing faith community in the area that later became the Diocese of Grand Rapids. And he penned the first ever English Ojibwe dictionary that helped as a means of evangelization, but also a way of advancing communication and knowledge between distinct cultures.
As he preached and traveled around Michigan and Wisconsin, he visits Grand Rapids for a brief period of time in the 1830s. He builds a very small church and rectory and school on the west bank of the Grand River. His first community interest in his missionary work is with the Native American peoples, and then begins to spend a great deal of time with the immigrant communities as well who come into the area.
On May 10, 2012, Baraga was declared venerable by Pope Benedict XVI, and his case for sainthood remains open. His legacy can still be felt in Michigan today. On July 24, 2012, a sculpture of Father Baraga was unveiled in the new cathedral piazza, a fitting tribute to a man who did so much to advance the faith in this region.
The Diocese of Grand Rapids was created in 1882 out of the Diocese of Detroit. Henry Richter becomes its first bishop. Under Bishop Richter, we see exponential growth in the Catholic population in the diocese. It goes from about 50,000 Catholics to over 150,000 throughout his tenure as bishop.
Lumber, railroads, and industry all transformed Western Michigan, helping make the area around Grand Rapids one of the centers of furniture manufacturing in the United States. And with that transformation came waves of newcomers, immigrant populations, many of them Catholic, settling in the region to find jobs and opportunity. During the late 19th century, the Diocese of Grand Rapids was transformed in its character through the arrival of new immigrant groups, particularly German and Polish Catholics. This created a bit of an obstacle for the bishop trying to create unity within the diocese. The bishops of Grand Rapids would face tensions over how to unite their immigrant flock. And this was part of a larger debate within the Church in the United States over whether or not to preserve immigrant communities as entities unto themselves or whether to try and Americanize immigrants. Some of these debates over Americanization may seem trivial, but were incredibly important to the Catholic communities themselves. Something as simple as the name of a parish. Bishop Richter was a great proponent of Americanization, and he wanted the parishes of the diocese to reflect universal saints. But members of his immigrant flock wanted their parishes to reflect the names of saints of their home country. And so the debates that emerged over whether or not a parish was going to be called St. Isidore, as the bishop wanted, or St. Stanislaus, as the Polish community wanted, were incredibly tense moments that reflect these broader difficulties that the Church faced over how to integrate immigrant newcomers into one diocese.
Catholic immigrants to Grand Rapids were proud of their faith and proud of their heritage. And they wanted to make their mark on the city's landscape, often building towering churches to mark their presence in Grand Rapids. One example is the Church of St. Adalbert, that was later raised to a minor basilica. It stands as a towering manifestation of Polish Catholic presence in the city of Grand Rapids and the importance that they placed on building up institutions where they could feel fully at home in their new country. The mother church of the diocese and center of liturgical prayer is the Cathedral of St. Andrew. St. Andrew has a rich history. It was originally founded as St. Mary's Church for the Native American population by Father Frederick Baraga. After Grand Rapids began to grow and new immigrant populations entered the city, in 1850 the original St. Mary's was replaced by a new structure on Monroe Street and named St. Andrew. 15 years later, to meet the increasing demands of the new immigrant Catholics, the present much larger church was completed.
The cathedral has had a number of renovations over its 140-plus year history. The first one was quite necessary because of a fire. There was a fire in 1901. There was significant damage, but by 1903, on July 4th, they were able to rededicate the new cathedral. Bishop Breitenbach did some renovation, as almost every bishop did after Vatican II in the late 70s, early 80s, to bring the church into line with the current liturgical principles. Bishop Rose did some remodeling in 1998 to 2000, and so we have the church that we have today.
The Cathedral of St. Andrew in Grand Rapids, Michigan is a neo-Gothic building. Even though it wasn't built originally as a cathedral, it's really fitting as the chief church of the diocese. The facade, as well as the entryway, are really grand. They give a sense of procession. The piazza was actually modeled after the piazza on the Capitoline Hill in Rome. So even before we cross through the threshold of the church, we're already in a sense of procession. The piazza has a pattern that really is directional. It pulls us towards the church and in through the threshold of the cathedral, and then that's picked up in the architecture of the interior. The columns, the patterning of the floor, everything really pulls us forward towards the altar of sacrifice. And we know right away that this is the most significant place in the church, the sanctuary. So in this curved apse of the sanctuary, it creates sort of city walls around this architecture, this little city that comprises the high altar. It makes us think of our heavenward pilgrimage. The meditation within a Gothic ecclesiastical structure is that of being in a forest. And you really get a sense when you're looking at these clustered columns with heavily ornamented capitals that sort of spring into canopies. So this is a groin vault, which is comprised of ribs and then flat fields. And it gives the sense that you're beneath the trees looking up at the stars.
In addition to being the bishop's church, where the bishop's chair or cathedra is, St. Andrew's Cathedral is also a very vibrant parish. The cathedral is staffed by the Paulist fathers, who are known for evangelization, which is exactly what we have to be about. They invite people in. It's a welcoming place. And of course, the Paulists are very much into catechesis. They also staffed the Catholic Information Center here in the diocese and have done so for over 70 years. But I'm so grateful for their ministry here because they are so welcoming. And that's what we certainly want for the Mother Church of the diocese, to have a vibrant parish life, as well as to be the church where all feel at home.
The cathedra, or chair, in St. Andrew's Cathedral represents Bishop Walkowiak's authority as the Apostle of Grand Rapids.
I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, a city called Westlake. My parents were very, very strong in the faith. My dad is still alive. We're very happy to visit with him. I have 3 sisters, and they all live on the west side of Cleveland, Ohio, in the suburbs on the west side. The desire to be a priest was the answer to a prayer. My mother, quite early, gave me a vocation prayer. Lord, let me know clearly the work you are calling me to do in this life, and grant me the grace that I need to answer your call with courage and love and a lasting dedication to your will. You'll notice there it didn't say to be a priest or anything, just let me know what you are calling me to do in life. Well, I said that prayer every day. And of course, I did get to know the priest as a server. I got to know the priest at St. Bernadette Parish. I was also very fortunate to have priests in the family. My great uncle, Monsignor Edmund Monzaleski, was the pastor of one of the Polish nationality parishes in Cleveland, St. Peter and Paul in Garfield Heights. He had a big laugh, and so he was a lot of fun to be around. I have a cousin who is a Benedictine monk at St. Andrew's Abbey in Cleveland. So our family grew up, we were very close to priests. I attended the University of Notre Dame. Interestingly enough, in those days, we all went to the ACC, which is the Athletic and Convocation Center, as freshmen, and we had to fill out a stack of papers. We were going through one paper after another, and tucked in there was a form from the campus ministry, and it said, did you ever consider being a priest? Well, I had, as a grade school student, much less in high school. So in my weariness, I checked yes. They contacted me. It was very interesting that Father Thomas McNally, who was the vocation director, guided me through the 4 years of college life. I think he wanted me to become a Holy Cross father, but he respected my desire to go into the diocesan priesthood. And he was able to preach at my first Mass, and he was able to attend my ordination as a bishop here 34 years later. The other thing was, it's really important to keep praying. So I prayed. I went to Mass as often as I could as a student. So when the time came, for what is the next step, it was something I had to check off my bucket list. Well, let's go to the seminary and get this over with, and see whether I'm supposed to do this or not. And I entered St. Mary's Seminary in Cleveland, Ohio, and I never looked back. I had a wonderful, wonderful time there, and I felt very, very comfortable being there and discerning for the priesthood.
On June 9, 1979, David Walkowiak was ordained to the priesthood by James Cardinal Hickey at the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist in Cleveland.
The first thing I remember is that the air conditioning broke in the cathedral. It was a very, very hot, muggy day. You can imagine what it was like inside the cathedral with 1,400 people inside. We were sweating so much that they issued towels to us halfway through the ordination Mass because we were so drenched. I remember we had 17 that were ordained that year, which of course is larger. Well, we're going back 40 years, so the classes were bigger. But I remember being probably about 12th in line, so I really didn't have to worry about any cues. Should I get up? Should I go here? Should I kneel down or whatnot? So I was able to enter into the prayer of the day. My first assignment was at St. Mary's Parish in Lorain, Ohio. Lorain, Ohio was a big industrial center. Population about 65,000, 25 miles west of Cleveland. You had American shipbuilding, you had U.S. Steel, you had a number of Ford motor plants, and I arrived during the recession in 1979, so many people were out of work. And so there was a very, very high percentage of unemployment there. It's a blue-collar town. And my first assignment was with a wonderful priest named Father John Klein. At that time, he was about 56, 57 years old. And what I learned from Father John, most of all, was to relax and to have a good time. He was just a wonderful priest. I would ask him questions. He would never tell me what to do, but he'd say, here's how I would do it, or here's what I have done. It was a very gentle way of mentoring. I ended up on the seminary faculty because I got a call from Bishop Pilla, and he asked me to come in, and he said, I would like you to get a degree in canon law and to be on the seminary faculty. And I studied at Catholic University of America, getting first the licentiate and then the doctorate.
After years as a priest, seminary professor, Vice Chancellor of the Diocese of Cleveland, and pastor, Father Walkowiak was appointed the next Bishop of Grand Rapids on April 18, 2013 by Pope Francis.
It was Tuesday of Holy Week, and of course I was busier than a one-armed paper hanger trying to get ready for Holy Week. The secretary comes into my office and says, there's some man on the phone from Washington who refuses to give his name but insists on talking to you. In this day and age, the apostolic nuncio calls you on your cell phone. It gets right to you. But in those, I didn't have a cell phone. So I thought to myself, is this a call I want to take? And I said, all right. I said, let's get this over with. I said, send the call in. So there on the phone was Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, who had a very pronounced accent. And he said hello, and I said hello. And he said, I have good news for you. Pope Francis has appointed you a Bishop of Grand Rapids, which is in Michigan. And of course, I was stunned. First of all, I hadn't been thinking about that. I was a pastor for 7 years, and I asked him if I could, I said, I'm very open to the Holy Father. I'm well disposed to it. I'd like to pray about it and maybe talk to my spiritual director. He says, what's there to pray about? I said, I'll call you back 10 o'clock the next day. And he said, fine. And of course, I knew once again that I had to say yes. I mean, you can't come up small in the spiritual life. I mean, the whole trajectory of being a priest is saying yes to whatever the next thing is. Priests certainly experience that with their changes in assignment, the things that the bishop asks them to do. So I knew I was going to say yes, but it just, really took me by surprise. Interestingly, is that call came exactly 1 week after he was installed as the Pope. So it was one of the first assignments that the Holy Father made after he'd becoming the Pope.
In the years since becoming bishop, Bishop Walkowiak has worked to shepherd his people as the chief teacher, sanctifier, and governor of the diocese.
The main ministry of the bishop is to preach to his people. It's not administrating a property or, being a CEO or anything like that. The main thing is preaching God's word to your people. So I spend a lot of time, I put a lot of effort in to the preparation of my homilies. I think that's very, very important. The cathedra is very, very symbolic of the bishop's sanctifying role. I certainly feel that at the Chrism Mass, when I think that I am blessing all these holy oils to be used in all of our faith communities. It's a wonderful expression of how the local church is gathered together under the leadership of its pastor, the bishop. Then, of course, we have the role of the directive role, the role of governance. The way I do it is, you surround yourself with competent people and you listen to them. Some of the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty things that need to be done. I have a wonderful staff. I listen to them a lot. When I do that, things tend to turn out okay. Yes, I am a leader in the role of governance, but I get a lot of help from my staff and others. I couldn't be happier being here. It's been a blessing these 6 years. You get on the road, you don't know what you're going to find or what's going to happen, but I've always believed that no matter where you go, the Catholic community is going to be wonderful and welcoming. Why wouldn't they be? Why would you expect that just because you're moving to another territory, that Catholics wouldn't be Catholics? I've just had a wonderful, blessed time here as my 6 years as bishop.